I listened carefully to Mr. Pritam Singh on Monday describing how he intends to perform the role of leader of the opposition. I applaud his tone and his approach. The government benches will do our part to work with him to keep Parliament a constructive forum for debate. I believe that it's good to have an adequate number of opposition MPs in Parliament. It keeps the government on its toes. It shows the public that the government has nothing to hide and will answer all questions, however awkward. And that is why we increased the minimum number of elected opposition MPs in Parliament to 12, and why in this Parliament we have 2 NC MPs from the Progress Singapore Party to top up the 10 from the Workers' Party. But that does not mean that the more opposition MPs and the more fiery the debate in Parliament is, the better. Or that the tone of our political debate cannot change for the worse. The adversarial dynamic that is inherent in the parliamentary system can go wrong.
Prime Minister referred to a point about a comment I made in my speech about the system will still run and so forth. Well, these are not just my thoughts. I refer the Prime Minister to the unofficial biography of the PAP, which was published by the Straits Times Press, if I remember correctly. And in it, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, our first Prime Minister himself, says this, and I quote, "At the end of the day, if you're running the system properly, you must have a distinction between what is the party, what is the government. So if you're voted out of office, the machinery is there for the next party to take over. So although we do not have much of an opposition, we keep the system going so that at any time the party is out, the government, parliament, the civil service will be there. The police, the armed forces will carry it through. It is not going to collapse," unquote. Sir, when Mr. Speaker, the opposition cause, we didn't have heady dreams of becoming government. It's certainly not me. Why did I do this? I believe in an opposition, in a parliamentary democracy. It's not going to happen with people just hoping someone else does it. Somebody has to put his flag in the sand and say, "I'm going to do it." And then it's the duty of myself, my party colleagues, to make sure that the people who are on board do their very best. This is my commitment to Singaporeans, and this is my commitment to the Prime Minister as well. Thank you.
Now, thirdly, on the system still running, he quoted Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, and indeed we have designed it to the best of our ability so that if the PAP is out of government, it shall not collapse straight away. But let me just ask you whether you really believe that if this team, if the PAP one day hands over to a new opposition party, the system can work the way it has been working? Yes, you can keep it flying. There's an autopilot. You can fly straight and level for some time. There are countries where the political system continually produces revolving door cabinets. Japan for a time was like that before Mr. Abe became Prime Minister a second time. And every 6 months you have a new Prime Minister, a new Minister for Trade and Industry, and so forth. Country didn't collapse. Did it do well? No. When Mr. Abe came in with, I think this time he was 9 years in government, 8 years, and got a team together and set directions, the country moved. So the system is such that with civil servants and the SAF and so on, therefore it doesn't matter who is the government. I think that's not being honest. In that case, we can dismiss all the ministers. They can go on leave. We don't need ministers. Anybody can be a minister. But you need to run a system which is finely tuned and capable. You need a very capable hand at the top. The ministers are not just presiding. The ministers are executive. They are running the ministries. They are expected to know all about the ministries, every in and out of the policy. When he comes here to answer in the Committee of Supply or in case there are parliamentary questions, he does not refer to his administrative vice minister, which is what the Japanese have, or in our equivalent would be the perm sec. He must master and explain it. And when he runs the ministry, he must decide what the contents are, what the direction is, the details, and if necessary, override the officials and decide on the direction. That's how we have done COVID-19. That's how the ministerial task force has operated. Long discussions, all views heard. Finally, the ministers must decide, and quite from time to time, the decisions is not what the staff consensus come up with, because there are partly there are political factors, but sometimes because the minister must exercise judgment and take responsibility. The staff did not recommend the circuit breaker. We discussed it in cabinet. There were many pros and cons. I said, better think about this carefully. Don't make an off the seat of the pants decision. Go back, sleep it, work out a proposal, work out another proposal, 30% more draconian. Come back day after tomorrow, come back tomorrow morning, talk about it. Discuss, decide. Cabinet decides. It's a big decision, $5 billion of supplementary budget. Civil servants, unelected, can make this, can carry this. A new government come in, can know how to do this, and have that feel and that trust and that confidence of Singaporeans, as well as the officials, as well as investors and everybody else watching us. Anybody can make it happen. I think that's not in this world.